Welcome to VL Speaks with You. I'm Bjorna Lisa, and this is episode 16. We're at the end of July, and we're also in the middle of heat waves, and they're just like waves. They just keep coming. So today I said I wanted to talk to you about the skin and how to protect it and what to do in this intense heat. So buckle up, here we go. When I think about summer, I always get kind of nostalgic, especially because we spent so much time on the beach as kids. Now, when I think about it back then, no one was putting sunscreen on any of their children back then. Not like what you see now. Everybody's wearing sunscreen nowadays, and kids are definitely being dragged back out of the water to like, hey, you need to put sunscreen on before you go anywhere. That wasn't happening back in the 70s. As a matter of fact, back in the 70s, I remember my mom and her friends used to make this concoction of like iodine and baby oil. They would actually put iodine inside of a bottle of baby oil and slather that all over themselves. And some of them would double down and say, okay, not only are we going to do that, but we're going to sit down and we're going to use reflectors and bring them up so that we can reflect the sunbeams back into our face, neck, and chest, the most sensitive skin on the body. And I can't believe they did that. Now, I don't see anybody doing that. I mean, back then I saw some people putting zinc oxide on their nose and their lips, especially the lifesavers. Yes, the lifeguards, the lifesavers. They were lifesavers. But I can't believe that was the case. I mean, back then we had more of an ozone layer. That is true. And the only time we would get this concoction of baby oil was when jellyfish came to town. So jellyfish season provided us a little bit of baby oil so that the jellyfish would just slide off and we wouldn't get stung too badly. Yeah, that was the extent of it. So now we're dealing with hotter conditions, and the sun is definitely feeling more intense on the skin these days. So what happens when the heat increases? Well, there's more water loss, obviously, because there's more sweating going on. And you may think, well, it's humid out some places, not everywhere. But it's humid out. Yeah, but you're still losing water because you're sweating. So you got to stay extra hydrated in that kind of weather because heat exhaustion and heat stroke could happen really once you get over a certain tipping point. It can happen very quickly, and you want to avoid that at all costs. So not only staying hydrated, but finding places to go and be inside somewhere that's cooler. That's common sense to do that. The thing with excessive heat, and as far as how it affects our skin, the heat, is that it increases the loss of elasticity in the skin. That's no fun. No, it is not. And if you combine that with the fact that a lot of people get waxed, males and females, it's not just women these days, are getting their different parts of their bodies waxed, that stretches the skin. And as they say in the biz, it can lift the skin, which means that it's ripping or tearing the skin. So that's another thing to be mindful of when you're exposed to a lot of heat, not to mention sun. Excessive sun exposure, and I'm going to get into the UV rays, but excessive sun exposure can also cause changes in the cells, the skin cells' DNA. So already, 5 minutes in, you got a lot of reasons to be very mindful of what you're doing in the heat and out in the sun. So the UV rays. Now, standing outside for 10 minutes to get a little bit of sun on your face so that your body produces some vitamin D, that's fine, okay? And of course, the time of day that you're going outside and spending bouts of time makes a difference as well. Obviously, the middle of the day after 10 o'clock a.m., the sun's going to be hot and intense till at least 2, 4 in the afternoon. And UV protection is recommended until the sun starts to go down, which is smart. But the UVA and the UVB wavelengths or rays of light definitely have an effect on us. So this is with overexposure and also unprotected exposure, what they can do that's harmful for you. All right. So UVA, that is associated with tanning, and also it could be aging. So that affects the dermis. That's underneath the outermost layer, the epidermis of the skin. UVA is a long wavelength. It's lower in intensity than UVB, but it can also go through glass and cloud cover. So keep that in mind. Just because there's clouds combined with smoke, especially, which is really not good for you, it's not only not good for your lungs, but it's not good for your skin. You're still going to get hit with UVA rays. So protection is important all year round. Alrighty, UVB. That affects the epidermis, and overexposure, especially unprotected, can cause burning. So that you need to be mindful of. But the UVB rays do not go through glass, and it can be filtered. And you can also tint windows on your car and in your home if you want to. Now, we all wear clothing, right? Walking around. We wear clothing when we're outside, except for when we're on the beach, unless you put some kind of a throw on yourself to protect yourself from the sun. And that's another way of protecting your skin. Mind you, technology has brought it to the point where they're creating products, clothing products, that have UV protection in them. And you can research that material. It's synthetic, and synthetic fabrics can help protect in general from UV rays. Densely woven materials like denim or canvas can also help. Things that are very sheer, not going to really help. Loose fitting, let's say even cotton that hasn't been treated, it's unbleached, has something called lignin in it, that can be good for helping you stop the UV rays from reaching you. And also darker colored clothing can absorb the UV rays and keep it from penetrating and going into your skin. So that's a few things that you can do, in addition to wearing a hat, wearing a wide-rimmed hat, wearing a hat that has a long bill and covers your neck. There's different ways of doing it. I've seen people walking with gloves on and long sleeve shirts and wearing a mask, like doing the whole nine. You could do that. There are some people that say, well, I've got melanin and melanin's good, for dealing with sun and UV rays. Yes. However, all skin does burn, especially with high intensity heat and sun. So keep that in mind. And if you do have darker skin, it's harder to detect sun damage. So please do not take your beautiful skin for granted and think that you can do this. Neglect it. You can't. Can't take it for granted, especially not nowadays. It's not worth it. Protect your skin, okay? There are people that are also susceptible to this heat and the sun, elderly and children, okay? Also, if you're on medications. So if you're on antihistamines, antibiotics, acne, treatments like acne medicine, and also anti-inflammatories, these are special considerations. If you are the type of person that likes to get like peels at the dermatologist or an esthetician, like glycolic peels, or lactic acid, salicylic acid, retinol, things of that nature, please be uber careful about going and hanging out in the sun. It's almost counterintuitive to do it even with sunscreen on. Just be mindful, like you don't want to cause premature aging or getting hyperpigmentation or anything else, or. Just be mindful. It's better to play it safe, especially when it comes to the sun. All right, now let's say, no, we're going to the beach, we're going to be outside, we're going to play games, we're doing whatever, we're going outside and we're just going to use SPF. Okay, great. Not all of these sunscreens are created equally, and not all of them are good for you. Okay, the most important active ingredient is zinc oxide. There's another one called titanium oxide, but zinc oxide takes care of both UVA and UVB. That's the first active ingredient that you want to see. I'm a purist. I don't want any chemicals in there that are associated with anything like carcinogens or endocrine inhibitors or disruptors. No, thank you. What I want to see on there are oils or beeswax that are good for sealing in moisture and hydration, and zinc oxide, as clean as possible. Now, I've mentioned a resource before. I mentioned it in my episode, the skin episode that I did earlier this year, ewg.org. They have one section called Verified, and that is the highest efficacy of rating that they can give to a product, whether it be for your hair, makeup, or skincare products. They have a rating system. I always go to the verified section of ewg.org. And that lets me know I cross-check everything on there. I keep it simple. It's got to be simple. I want to see very few ingredients, and I want to know exactly what they are. Also, the thing is that you want to check out if there's an expiration date on your sunscreen. Okay, there should be one. If you notice that you're using sunscreen that's over a year old and it has started to separate so that liquid oozes out first, it's past its prime. Okay. I also want to know that the company that I'm supporting and buying this product from is keeping in mind how that product affects the rest of the environment and its critters. Yes, it's worth doing the research. You got to care about you and everything else around you. Remember, these critters can survive without us. We cannot survive without them. It's a symbiotic relationship, so we've got to do our part to make sure that we're not contributing to anything that might hurt them. Just like you wouldn't want to hurt yourself, right? You wouldn't want to be using products on your skin that could possibly cause cancer in the future, not just skin cancer, other types of cancers. Because remember, the skin is the largest organ of the body, and it does absorb a lot of what we put on it. Yeah, keep that in mind. So now we've got broad spectrum sunscreen, we've got this SPF sunscreen. What's the difference? Go with broad spectrum. Why? Because it deals with UVA and UVB. Then you've got your SPF rankings. What does that mean? All right, let's say you can go outside for 10 minutes and you're not going to burn, but after that, you know you're going to burn. So you start with SPF 15. It also depends on the time of day and the time of year. That's going to make a difference in the intensity of the sun that you're getting, okay? And where you are. If you're higher in altitude, or if you're on a snowdrift, or if you're out on the water, that intensifies the sun and what's coming at you. So let's say it's 15 SPF. That means that you have 15 times the amount of time that you can stay out with protection. Okay, and of course, if you're going into water and it's not resistant, it's not water resistant for any amount of time, you're definitely going to need to reapply that. And if it's really, really blazing out there, you don't want to spend tons of time in the water without coverage. So keep that in mind. Max 2 hours for any of the SPFs. So you've got SPF 30, and then you've got SPF 50, and I've seen 20s in there and whatnot. So it's not just the amount of time, but then it's also the percentage of coverage that you get. So like SPF 15 is 93%, about 93%, depending on the sunscreen that you're using also. And then you've got 30 SPF, and I'm basing this on what I use for myself, and I know the efficacy of this product is very high. Badger, I use their 40 SPF. So then it's 97% for 30 SPF, jump up to 50, that's 98%. And that all makes a difference. So you got to take all those factors into consideration. Time of year, where you are, and your own skin. Know your own skin. Okay? Alrighty. I know that I packed a lot of information in a short amount of time, which I always try to do. But make sure that you stay hydrated. Make sure that you have an area to go into for shade and for cooling down. Make sure that you protect your skin with your clothing and with the sunscreen that you use. And use tools like ewg.org. And if you are vitamin D deficient, check out Bold Botanica's D3K2A. I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Feel free to share this. Feel free to subscribe. And if you're going to leave a comment, please be mindful and respectful. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Take good care. Ciao.